As we head towards England v Hungary live at 7:15, first the ITV News, where you are now. Now the latest ITV News in London.
Tonight, back to work, but not back in the city. As the Mayor tries to entice workers back to their offices, businesses despair at slow September. Also ahead.
Within a second, they had stabbed one of my colleagues. I looked to the other side, they'd stabbed another one of my colleagues.
A story of survival, the man knocked by two of the capital's worst moments, back fighting for himself and others. And charity starts at home, the 4-year-old helping those in need. Good evening. For many Londoners, today marked the end of the summer holidays and the start of a new year as children return to school. Before the pandemic, city workers would flock back to the capital after an August away, but the reality this year is very different. Yesterday, the number of people on the tube at rush hour was the highest it's been since the start of the pandemic, but still half of what it was 2 years ago. Today, the Mayor urged people to come back to the office to enjoy after-work drinks and West End shows. But with the flexible work week set to stay, will it be enough? Martin Stew has more.
Roslyn Coffee Shop by Mansion House had its busiest morning today since the pandemic began.
We're not too far off where we used to be. That's Tuesday to Thursday. Monday and Fridays are still pretty, they're nowhere near where they used to be.
But yet you're opening 2 new stores, so you must have some confidence that the city will bounce back.
Yeah, I mean, the City of London's been around for 2,000 years. We expect it to stay around a little bit longer.
To coax people back to the city, new signs have been put up at underground stations.
The number of people using the tube during yesterday morning's rush hour was 14% higher than the week before. But there's still a long way to go. Overall passenger numbers are just 53% of what they were back in 2019.
But you can't replicate on Zoom the joy of seeing colleagues in person. 1 out of 5 jobs in our city are in hospitality and retail. So we're encouraging Londoners to return to the office safely and then to do some after-work socialising.
At Cheese at Leadenhall, Mondays are still so quiet, it's not worthwhile opening. And Fridays aren't much better.
The city will go back to what it was before, but I think, frankly, in a different form. This year is going to be very much 3 days a week.
Does that earn you enough money to stay open?
Well, that is probably the $50 million question, Martin, to be honest, and I think time will tell on that.
After 40 years as a lunch spot, Andrea has had to change his business into a bar to survive.
Companies are reducing office space. They can't have their full team back in all week because there's no space. They're told not to travel in peak times to stay safe. So I don't really know what they can do to support. It's a question that maybe someone needs to answer because I'm trying to work that out. I just need them here.
The question is whether the Mayor alone can do this. I think probably it needs national government messaging to some extent to reverse the stay-at-home lockdown messaging.
How quickly that message gets through could decide how many businesses stay afloat. Don't forget, rent arrears, often running into the tens of thousands, are due in the spring. Martin Stew, ITV News.
A 4th person has died after a serious collision on the M25 in Essex. 3 passengers died at the scene last Monday. A lorry driver has been arrested on suspicion of causing death and serious injury by dangerous driving. And a man has been arrested in connection with a number of unprovoked assaults on Jewish people in Hackney. One of the attacks, believed to be racially motivated, left a 64-year-old man with head injuries and a broken foot. Last month, the Prime Minister announced a new settlement scheme that would see 20,000 Afghan refugees come to Britain. But so far, councils in London have said they only have the capacity to rehome somewhere between 125 and 152 families. Today, the Deputy Leader of Kensington and Chelsea Council told ITV News much more needs to be done, and soon. Sam Holder reports.
This is one of the 4 homes that we're going to be making available for families.
This house will soon be a home for a family of Afghan refugees, one of 4 side by side in Notting Hill. I'm being taken on a tour by the deputy leader of Kensington and Chelsea Council. For the time being, this is it when it comes to houses for Afghan refugees in the borough.
4 families doesn't sound like a huge amount.
No, it doesn't sound like a huge amount, and these are our initial 4 that we've identified. We'll obviously be looking to see what other further support.
The deputy leader of the Conservative Council says the government needs to give more money and wants private landlords to also help out.
We've got a major crisis here, and a lot more needs to be done in order to find settled homes, and clearly the government is working on that, and all I will do is implore the government to put as much pressure as they can to providers of accommodation, and I'm very much looking towards housing associations here because they own an awful lot of property.
Councils are under no obligation to find homes for the refugees. The government has promised to resettle 5,000 Afghans by the end of the year. So far, 27 out of 32 London boroughs have offered up accommodation. That will house a total of between 125 and 152 families across the entire capital. Those who aren't found homes have to stay in temporary accommodation. Khan was an interpreter for the British Army. Now he and his family are stuck in a hotel in Watford.
We are about 25 families in this hotel, for everybody waiting for accommodation, permanent accommodation.
A government spokesperson said, "We have made £5 million available to local authorities to support in housing costs. We aim to move the refugees into long-term accommodation as soon as possible." But councils across the capital say government funding simply won't cover it. That means for those who've fled the Taliban, it could be a very long wait before they find a permanent home. Sam Holder, ITV News.
Next tonight, in 2017, Osman Uganda witnessed not one but 2 traumatic events. A pub doorman in Borough Market, he confronted attackers during the London Bridge terror attack and directed people to safety. 11 days later, he watched the Grenfell Tower burn from his bedroom window. He lost friends on both days. Now, he's taking his fight for survival to the boxing ring to raise money for the mental health charities which helped him cope. Rags Martel has his story.
He first faced terrorists, then a tragedy.
It was hard to actually believe this could all happen in the space of less than 2 weeks.
In June 2017, Osman Uganda was working as a bouncer when this happened. He found himself in the middle of the London Bridge terrorist attack.
And I could see 3 men walking towards me with knives in their hands. People ran past me. Within a second, they had stabbed one of my colleagues. I looked to the other side, they stabbed another one of my colleagues, and then they were just basically walking towards me.
After realising he was facing terrorists, Osmanu tried to fend them off, saving the lives of 2 victims.
Threw bottles at them, threw a chair at them, and the idea was to keep them at bay and then make sure that the girl and the guy that were on the floor were as safe as possible, because I didn't know if they'll make it through, or if they were to get up, would they get stabbed again.
But just 11 days later, he faced another tragedy. Grenfell Tower on fire.
To go through one trauma and then to look out your window and see a place where I grew up being on fire.
He still wishes he could have done more to help in this disaster.
I didn't want to go there because I felt like if I did go there, the type of person that I am, I would end up running in that building just to make sure that everyone was all right. So I've all started to cry.
No.
Yeah.
You want to take a minute?
No, that's cool. It's cool. It is what it is, isn't it? So.
To help with the grief of losing friends in the fire, he turned to Minds United FC, a mental health charity.
I just literally love what they was doing. It made me feel like there was a place where I could go where I could actually speak to people.
And now he's fighting for the charity, quite literally taking part in a boxing event next week to raise funds.
I'm going to do my best. I'm going to make myself proud, make my son proud, and hopefully make my community proud as well.
Despite everything he's seen, Osmanu continues to move forward, still helping others. Rags Martel, ITV News.
On to the weather, and it's been cold and grey out there again today, but it looks like we could finally be in store for a sunny weekend. Here's Chris Page now with the forecast.
Making the most of it, whatever the weather. Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
Hello there. Very good evening to you. Cloudy skies for many of us across large parts of the capital through today. There have been a few glimmers of sunshine the further south you've been, but that's just teasing us up for what's due to come as we head towards the weekend. If you're looking for something a little bit drier, brighter and warmer, aren't we all? As we go through the rest of this evening and overnight, though, for most of us, we still hold on to the cloud that's been with us through the last few days too, mostly affecting northern parts of the capital and towards northern home counties. The further south you are, yes, a few clearer skies here, but still temperatures holding up around 12 to 14 degrees Celsius, so in the mid-teens. It means that we start Friday, the end of the working week. Yes, there's still some cloud with us through the day, through tomorrow, but there's a subtle change to the wind direction, now starting to see more of an easterly starting to develop, so that will bring in something a little brighter into the afternoon. So helping to break the cloud up, top temperatures in the range of 21 to 22 degrees. Now by Saturday, we'll still see a little bit of cloud through the morning, but still feeding in that southeasterly to an easterly airflow means that the cloud will start to break up as well. So more sunshine into the afternoon on Saturday, and temperatures responding quite nicely, 22 to 23 degrees Celsius, maybe a smidge higher than that as well. That's because the area of high pressure is starting to slip its way out towards the east. We're now dragging in some drier air from the continent and also some warmth from the continent too, as you can see by the oranges and the yellows pushing their way across the charts. So after cloudy days for the last, week or so, for most of us as we go into the weekend, it stays fairly dry with more sunshine, plenty of sunshine into Sunday and the start of next week. And look at those temperatures too, recovering into the mid-20s. Take care.
Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
That's more like it, isn't it? Finally, as we've watched the crisis in Afghanistan unfold over the last fortnight, it has been hard to know what to do to help, but not if you're 4-year-old Seren Gardner. Alongside her mum and brother at their home in West London, Seren has been putting together care packages for refugees arriving in the capital, giving herself the title Chief Packer. Toby Sadler's been to meet them.
So you're Seren?
Already a volunteer, in many ways, Seren Gardner is not like other 4-year-olds. But in other ways, she is.
How do you make sure that you put the right things in the right bag? What's your system? How do you get it right?
Because I have this sort of magic what helps me do that.
Tell me a bit about that.
The magic kind of picks up speed and my eyes go where my hands go.
It's a magic touch the whole family has been using. They've been sending out care packages since the start of COVID. They've helped nurses and the homeless. Next is the Afghan refugees coming to London.
How much help do you think this is going to give them?
A lot, because if they needed to wash themselves, they could do it. If they needed to clean their teeth, they could do it.
You're right with that. Be careful, there's not that much space in here. It's getting a bit full now.
You've got a lot of stuff in here, haven't you?
Yes. Yeah.
Mum Sarah is the mastermind. Her garage is now a hub for sorting donations.
So these are puppets. So they've got happy and sad faces. So the idea is these can be used to provide emotional support for children. So it's all a bit emotional.
It obviously affects you, this.
Oh yeah, it does, yeah, because you feel for the people. Yeah, so we obviously set the charity up during COVID, and we've seen, lots of heartache, lots of things going on, and we're just here to help when we can, really.
Sarah's charity is called Serving Our Superheroes. It needs help, both money and donations. And if you have somewhere she could store all this, that would also be great. Toby Sadler, ITV News.
Do get in touch if you can. And that is it. We're back with the latest after news at 10. Coming up, Mary with the evening news. But from me and the rest of the London team, have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.